Well, we had a lot of questions about this Bruins team, and they answered them tonight in a 5-4 shootout win over the Philadelphia Flyers. Mariah, Janos, and Evan Marinofsky joining me from the Garden. First period, good. Second period, not great. Third period, freaking awesome. 4 of the 5 goals coming in that third period, but you are at the Garden. You got to hear some post-game reaction. Anything good you want to tell us?
Well, first of all, there was not much reaction in the building, given that there was nobody here, which was very, very weird. This is my first event that I've been at with no fans, and it was very eerie, very, very eerie. When there's no goal light, there's no cheering. Normally, these big scoring chances, you hear the oh, and there's none of that, which was very, very odd. But from the post game, I think the big thing was Bruce Cassidy kind of, the message between the second and third period. I mean, it's sort of like they hit a peak of not being able to score in that second period. I believe they're out shooting the Flyers 18-11 at that point, and there was just nothing. There was no chances. And he said, we were too easy to play against offensively, and the veterans have to step up. And it sounds like he yelled at them in between the second and third, which, I mean,
Why not?
who could blame him? That was very expected. But even with that, I mean, in the third period, Coyle steps up and scores. Jack Studnicka scores, Nick Ritchie scores. A lot of guys are getting involved offensively with assists. Brandon Carlo, of all people, ends up scoring. So it was sort of like, and then Jake DeBrusk in the shootout. So it's sort of like this, it's sort of like the dam broke in a sense. It's sort of like that message finally got through. And I think that to me is the story of this game, in the sense that Cassidy just went in, whipped them all into shape, and suddenly they became harder to play against offensively.
I mean, it got to a point where it's like enough is enough. There is really no excuse for not being able to bury some of these goals. They had great chances from start to finish. So it was awesome to see them clicking in that third period. And the best part is the guy that got this scoring started for the Bruins is Jack Studnicka with his first NHL goal. We knew it would only be a matter of time for him to notch that one, right?
Yes, and that was the thing. I mean, and it's funny, they scored a goal that they've failed to score all year, and it was just a dirty net front tap in. That was all it was. I mean, it took us in the building, it took the goal horn like 20 minutes to go off because no one knew that it went in. It was like, oh my God, the 5-on-5 goal. But it really was a grinding type goal that they needed to score. And that's why, like, it was almost a good thing that their 5-on-5 goal wasn't, some beautiful, pretty goal. It was just a hard nosed tip it in front of the net, just go to the right area. And that's sort of what happened. And for a guy like Studnicka, that's a huge confidence builder, considering he was scratched from the second game and things didn't really get out to the start that he wanted to. And suddenly now he's playing with Krejci consistently and he scores a goal tonight. So things seem to be going up for Jack Studnicka as well.
Yeah, and you could tell that gave him a huge boost after that one. He was so much more aggressive, really getting involved there. And the guy that set him up, Nick Ritchie. What is going on with Nick Ritchie?
I mean, it's funny. It's I think it's the most surprising storyline of the year thus far, is Nick Ritchie coming up as big as he is. I mean, Jesus. And I think it really comes down to, and this is something that gets exaggerated a lot, is when you go to a new place, it does take some time to adjust. And he never really did get the time. I mean, last year, he had, a handful of games.
Right.
Then he goes to the bubble with a brand new team in the middle of a pandemic. Now, he started from square one with everybody else. Now, they're not expecting him to do these amazing things. And that's, I think, with Nick Ritchie, is one of those things that he's not this phenomenal player, but he's doing his job. Yeah. He's creating chances in front of the net. He's finishing his chances in front of the net. He's physical in the corners for once. The job, he doesn't have this huge job, but the jobs he does have, he's doing right, and you're seeing the results of those. And I think that's the most important thing. That should be an example to guys like Coyle and Bjork, who didn't see a lot of time in the third period, is that Ritchie does not have all these crazy jobs, but he's doing them right, and he's doing them at the right time. And it's crazy to see. It's crazy to see. Did not expect Nick Ritchie to be the team's leading scorer after 4 games, but here we are. Nick Ritchie, leading goal scorer of your Boston Bruins.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing exactly what Bruce Cassidy has been asking for, keeping it simple, getting pucks to the net,
Keep it simple, stupid, easy.
Keep it simple, stupid. Seriously, that's all he needed to do, and it's a prime example. And clearly, the other guys are starting to follow suit because they're seeing that it works. They were clearly in their heads and overthinking these first 3.5. We can factor in that this first 40 minutes of this game as well.
11 periods. 11
Yeah.
periods it was without a 5-on-5 goal. I'll tell my kids about that.
God, that's just so painful. It was so painful. People were really ready to give up. Game 4 of the season.
Yeah, game 4. I saw a tweet. It was like, you're not a real Bruins fan if you don't absolutely hate the Boston Bruins. And it's true. People really were starting to jump ship. But again, it was that what Cassidy said between that second and third period that sort of saved them.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. They needed that kick in the butt. The one thing I wasn't crazy about in tonight's game, aside from the scoring in the first 2 periods or the lack thereof, the penalties, definitely something that needs to be cleaned up going forward, right?
Yeah, it is. And the penalties that were happening, I mean, a lot of people up until the 5-on-5 goal issues were like, hey, maybe they should be shorthanded because that was a goal they scored.
Yeah.
But you're right. The penalties are an issue, but that's also an early season thing. That's going to happen. Refs are typically going to call more penalties early here in the season. They're getting warmed up to. So, some calls, there were especially some calls last game against the Islanders that were very, what?
Yeah.
But it is an issue. You can't be having those penalties, especially late in games. That can't be happening in a tie game or a close game like that. That can't be happening. But that's something that gets cleaned up. That's something that every team goes through at some point. I think that I doubt that this team is going to have like serious penalty troubles as the season goes along.